People who have worked at Goodwill or other thrift stores etc. and processed donations. What's the craziest thing you've found? I found $125 in the front pocket of a kid's coat. Had to be like a 3 to 4Y. Oh. Next day I found more money in another jacket. Note to self. Go to Goodwill and check the pockets. My friend was checking pockets once at a Salvation Army. Got stung by a hornet. Like shaking trees in Animal Crossing. Checking pockets has risks and rewards. About 10 years ago I worked at a chain thrift store. One morning we got a phone call from this gentleman saying, rather calmly, "I think I accidentally donated my mom." Naturally I had no clue what the F that meant. Turns out the guy donated his mom's ashes, so he left his number in case we found it. The whole backroom went on a hunt because it had turned into this competition on who would find his mom first. We found her, phoned him and he came and picked her up. We thought that was the last of him until we were processing some donations a few months later and found his mom again. We phoned him because we still had his contact information. His only reply was "God damn it." He came and got her, and we never heard from him after that. Edit, to those asking. She was in a big, heavy, bronze. There's no way that's not an urn. I'm still not convinced the second time was an accident. In a sea of dirty sex toys. This made me laugh. Worked at a value village a long time ago, and a coworker found cremated ashes. They were in a box that had the funeral home info on it, so our manager contacted them about it. Mom was salvaging aluminium at the landfill and found over 300 ash remains from the local crematory. The police got called, he got shut down, and 40 years later his daughter still hates my guts and will go out if a way to harm me for my mother's find. Back in the 90s my mom would buy those blank VHS tapes to record on, and sometimes the Goodwill had some that already had stuff recorded on them, but we would just record over them. I remember one that had a bunch of Simpsons episodes, but on some of them there was porn. A lot of porn. Not me, but an acquaintance from high school found a live hamster. Came with a little cage and all. OMG, that's horrible. Did they save him? Yeah, once he got the new hamster his friend really turned over a new leaf. So why, out of all the stupid things people unbox on YouTube, why isn't there Goodwill donations unboxing? I would rather see a confused employee talk about his/her latest haul of dildos, butts, samurai swords, and fluids. OMG, you're right. Charities are missing a potentially huge extra revenue stream here. My mum works in one. I asked her if she could keep an eye out for any skin rugs. The next day she calls me. They had a goat skin donated. It puts the lotion on its skin. Coworker found a live hand grenade. Bomb squad was called. Be careful when you donate grandpa's stuff. People, the workers at my local Goodwill probably pulled the pin and threw it in the dumpster out back. I found a hidden WW1 photo. Got in a crappy picture showing the different knots. It was a seaside town I was working in at the time, so I put the picture out cheap. Few days later it fell off the wall and the frame broke, so I brought it to the back to chuck it out. Found a big military group photo hidden behind. No idea why it was hidden. No idea why it was hidden. I reckon that they wanted to replace the picture, but they didn't really have the place to store it effectively otherwise. I worked for a non-profit for seniors that had a charity shop in it. People often just dropped off boxes of stuff they found in their parents' attic. One box had a bunch of letters. Some of them were from WWII, when the man was stationed at Camp Carson in Colorado, and one of them must have been something they were keeping from an older generation. It was a 1914 letter proposing marriage. It was so romantic. He fell in love with her when they went ice skating together. He included an advertisement for some houses they could buy. They were really nice houses, selling for about $1,500. That is so sweet. What do you do with these? Keep for posterity or donate to the library? Do libraries even accept these anymore? Edit. Support your local archives, libraries and historical societies. I used to sweep the parking lot of a Goodwill and they would toss very interesting stuff in the dumpster. Hundreds of books, like really expensive ones. leather-bound sets of classical works from the 1920s, early prints of sci-fi novels. I found a nice collectible copy of Dune recently. Family Bibles stacked thick with memories. Food dehydrators. Paintings. Collectible sports memorabilia. Super valuable vintage tools and fixtures. Most of it is just stuff that nobody bothered checking the value on before chucking it out. And it's really sad. I found a destroyed collection of old Spalding baseball bats, the oldest being from the 30s. They were left in the dumpster, in standing water for days at least. It's sad to see things like that go. Maybe because at one point someone loved them very much, and someone else decided that all the care it took to collect these treasures was a waste. A 9-year-old I tutored said that her family made their money by salvaging collectibles from thrift store and pawn shop dumpsters, such as any antique doll head that fetched $1,000. This is how my mother makes her money. She buys thrift store items and resells them. Anything that makes worth anything. Clothes. Antiques. One time she found a painting at a Goodwill that she bought for $2 and she sold it for over $15,000 to a collector in Asia through Christie's auction in Hong Kong. Funny semi-related story. When my grandmother was still alive and able to walk, she had lost a lot of her sight. So she carried a magnifying glass with her and would pick things up and look at them closely just to be able to see what they were. My mom would take her to stores like Goodwill just to help get her out of the house. And every time they went to a thrift store, inevitably someone would start following them and picking up what my grandmother put down. It looked like she was inspecting little knickknacks and trinkets super carefully. And if she said something like "this is nice" or "I really like this," someone would pick it up thinking it was valuable. I do not work at a Goodwill, but I found the DD 214 discharge papers of a World War II veteran at a thrift store, along with original family photos, documents and letters. I was very upset. Having recently handled so much paperwork around the death of my grandfather, I knew exactly what I was looking at when I saw the DD 214. I bought all the documents I could put my hands on and started googling the man's name. I tracked down his adult daughter who owned a small business with her husband. I found the email address of the small business and sent her what must have been an alarming email. Although I was as cordial as I possibly could be, she got back to me almost immediately. It turned out he had remarried after the marriage to her mother ended. His new wife and her 2 sons pretty much took over the man's life and the daughter saw very little of her father. At the end of his life they took charge of all of his possessions and cleared out his house without having told her anything. Even though the second wife had died and the 2 sons were not technically blood. She was very angered and upset by this at the time. Understandably, I told her she must be the little girl in the baby pictures I had found and I would be glad to send her all these materials. I shipped them out to her via FedEx with tracking and she was so deeply moved. She didn't have any baby pictures with her father. I don't know if I've ever done anything good in my life. I'm sure I have. But I know I did a good thing that week. Internet research skills plus compassion for the win. That is awesome. A dead bat, a switchblade, a pocket watch painted with radium, and an 18th century wolf trap. Edit. I almost forgot a late 1800s book on phrenology. Like, just a straight up dead bat? Or a taxidermied bat? It was the mummified remains of a bat at the bottom of a plastic bag filled with old, I want to say varnish supplies. Needless to say it's the bat I remember best. Not me but my aunt. One of the few surviving Enigma machines. The owner passed away and his family dropped it off with a box of newspapers and some memorabilia from the war etc. My aunt being a history nut, figured out what it was, got it appraised, worth almost £100k, and looked for the family for 5 months before being able to return it to them. She didn't have a heart to take it under false pretenses. Your aunt is a very kind lady. A sword used by a Japanese officer in WWII. A suitcase full of adult toys. A coin collection worth nearly $2,000 accidentally left in a cupboard that was donated. A photo album of someone's wedding was donated amongst the belongings of the pastor that married the couple after he passed. The bride happened to be someone I went to school with. I tend to sort books at my store, so have found a few odd things in there. Cashier's bookmarks, about $150. A book with carved pages to conceal some jewels and gemstones. A few first edition books on agriculture from the 1800s. Lots of handwritten recipes. Personal letters, and my favorite, a letter sent in the last mail delivery from Hong Kong before the British returned it to China. Affixed with every stamp available at the time and mint versions of each of the stamps enclosed. I recently found a reference letter for a Danish gardener being let go because the woman's husband had died and she could no longer afford to employ him. It was dated March 1937. Would love to see that.